Hello, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be discussing about my reaction to the USMNT U20 World Cup roster. So, let's begin. This is one of the best rosters that I think we've had in a while. So, obviously, I think that we can do some really good stuff in this upcoming World Cup. So, let's begin. So, obviously, the last group, obviously, had some really good names there that I believe who will be good contributors to our current team right now. From the 2019 group, obviously, there's guys like Sergio Dest and Timothy Wiley who were starters at this recently in this World Cup in Qatar. They were starters, so obviously there's two key contributors from that group. Obviously, there's other guys as well. Obviously, there's Mark McKenzie. I think Mark McKenzie should have made the World Cup roster, but I think Greg Berhalter is an idiot, and he decided to go with Aaron Long instead, which is a pretty stupid decision. Obviously, there's other guys as well. Obviously, there's Conrad De La Fuente, Richie Ledesma, Alex Mendez, kind of guys that are more for the depth rather than being starters. So obviously, there was some guys, but obviously mostly, it was a pretty good roster. But obviously, I think this roster is a whole lot more talented and it has a lot more exciting faces. I don't think there's guys that are going to have a higher ceiling as a Sergio Dust or a Timothy Well, but let's see. Okay, so obviously let's go with some notable players missing out. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of good players missing out, since obviously their clubs did not release them, and obviously one of them is Paxton Aronson. So obviously Paxton Aronson. So obviously Paxton Aronson is going to be missing out on this World Cup roster because obviously Frankfurt did not want to release him, and obviously they wanted to keep him for the DFB Pokal final and the remainder of the Bundesliga season, which for me was kind of a dumb decision to do. But in my opinion, I think they could have obviously released him, and obviously they got to see what he can do against like a little bit of much lower competition, but it's still competition that he should be playing against, which is U20. I think against senior players in Europe, I think he's still not. I think he's missing like one or two steps before he can be a key contributor to a European team. Um, so obviously Paxton Aronson is a notable player missing out. Michael Halliday obviously is another one. I think he would be a starter on the team, but obviously Michael Halliday is probably not going because Orlando City did not release him. Obviously Michael Halliday would be starting. I think he'll be starting over Marito Cuevas on this team, but obviously I do not know because Marito Cuevas has been in a longer time with the team, so I don't know. Obviously Michael Halliday is another decent prospect that we should keep on, who we should keep a look, who we should keep an eye on. Brian Gutierrez, another player that looks pretty interesting. Obviously, he's going to be missing out because Chicago Fire did not wanted to release him, like Chris Brady as well. Brian Gutierrez has been one of the best midfielders and one of the best young midfielders in Major League Soccer this season, and him missing out is kind of disappointing, which I think he would have been a starter easily on this team, or at least be battling out for a spot. But I think he probably would have been a starter on this team. Chris Brady, obviously another guy that probably would be starting, but obviously Gabriel Slonina does exist, and obviously I think if I were Chicago Fire, I probably would have kept them on in home as well. Um, just because obviously he's not going to be starting over Gabriel Slonina anytime soon. So obviously I would have kept Chris Brady at home as well. Jalen Neal, another decent prospect. I think he would be a starter. I think he's better than any of the other center backs that we have right now. And obviously LA Galaxy want to keep him because they want to save their season, supposedly, because obviously the Galaxy are so shit. Like they're so shit. The Galaxy. Noel Buck, another decent prospect over here. Obviously, New England Revolution probably did not want to release him, so there's that. And obviously, he's one of the key contributors to their season so far. And obviously with a lot of good midfielders, I think it's kind of understandable that they kept them home. But again, I do not know. Alejandro Alvarado and Caden Clark are the other two faces, but obviously I think their quality is missing. I think Alejandro Alvarado should look for a transfer back to the MLS. And Caden Clark should probably go look for a loan. Who knows, somewhere in MLS other than the New York Red Bulls, or maybe in the Austrian Bundesliga. Who knows? But obviously, you should be trying to find a move real quick. So now let's go over for the key facts. USMNT is in a, oh my goodness, I had a typo. USMNT is in a group with Fiji, Ecuador, and Slovakia. USMNT versus Ecuador is this Saturday, well, the next Saturday, May 20th. USMNT versus Fiji, May 23. It's going to be on a Tuesday, I think. And then USMNT versus Slovakia on May 26th, which is going to be on a Friday. So obviously, I believe this is a pretty easy group. I think even with Rokas Buxtas and Karen Paredes missing the group stage due to them staying with their European teams, I think we should still finishing first in this group pretty comfortably as well. I feel like we got a lot of good players on this team, and I feel like we should be finishing first in this group. So obviously, let's go over look for some players over here. Goalkeepers, obviously, Gabriel Slonina, Antonio Carrera, and Alex Bordo. I feel like with Chris Brady out of the picture, I feel like you just have to go with the best three goalkeepers, and I feel these are the three best goalkeepers in my opinion. Uh, Obviously, Chris Brady will probably be here instead of, let's say, maybe an Antonio Carrera, if obviously, in my opinion. If he were on this roster, I think he'll be over Antonio Carrera. But obviously, I think Cowell probably kept him home just so he can play games and not sit on the bench in Indonesia. So that's my opinion. Obviously, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but obviously, I feel like I probably would have kept Chris Brady at home as well. Obviously, Gaga Sonina is going to be starting, even if Chris Brady made the trip to Indonesia. I feel like Gaga Sonina will be starting. So next is going to be the center backs: Justin Che, Josh Winder, Brandon Craig, and Marcus Buchanan. Justin Che and Josh Winder for me are the starters over here. Both of them are really, really exciting prospects. Brandon Craig is another exciting prospect. I think he would be a good starter for any MLS team. But since he's in Philadelphia Union, and obviously Philly has a lot of good defenders, I feel that that's one of the reasons why he is left at home. Marcus Buchanan, he's average. I don't think he's gonna be doing anything in his life. Uh, let me rephrase that. He's probably not gonna be doing anything in his soccer life. Like he's probably gonna be an MLS rotation player at best. I feel like he's gonna be probably gonna be his ceiling is probably gonna be somewhere like a who knows probably gonna be like with an RSL team. Who knows? He's probably gonna be an RSL in the future. Who knows? Like Houston Dynamo. Who knows? He's probably gonna be starting for me, being a solid starter for a low-seeded playoff MLS team. I think that's his ceiling. I don't see much in him. Brandon Craig, for me, obviously he has a pretty high ceiling as well, but I think his ceiling is probably gonna be in a Belgian league type system. Justin Che and Josh Reiner for me both have the highest ceilings over here. Justin Che can be a Bundesliga starter. Josh Reiner for me can become a starter for any European team in 5 years' time. So who knows? In 5 to 7 years' time, I think he can be a starter. So who knows? Obviously, I feel like those three are probably our highest ceiling center backs in this U20 pool right now. An exception of Jalen Neal, because I feel like Jalen Neal would be a starter for this group. I feel he'll be starting over Josh Winder. In my opinion, he will be starting over Josh Winder. But obviously, who knows? Who knows? Josh Winder is as well a pretty good player as well. But obviously, this center back pool is pretty interesting. So obviously, next is the fullbacks: Jonathan Gomez, Caleb Wiley, and Marcin Cuevas. I'm pretty surprised that we brought one right back, but obviously we brought Justin Che to this World Cup, and Justin Che can technically fill up that spot in case of something happens to Mauricio Cuevas. If I was the manager, I probably would have moved up Caleb Wiley to a winger. If I was the head coach, I probably would have moved them up. I don't know if there was any reason why Michael held. I don't. I think Orlando would have probably released him, but who knows? Orlando did release him for another U20 camp earlier this year. Um, but I do not know if they had a match. I forgot about it. Obviously, you have Caleb Wiley, a pretty interesting choice. Although it's a it's an obvious choice, obviously. Jonathan Gomez, obviously another obvious choice, and Murtu Covers. So you just go ahead and play it safe. But obviously, I probably would have brought Michael Hade if Orlando City released him. But if they did not release him, then that's understandable. So obviously, there's that. Um, Obviously, I feel like it's a pretty decent fullback group. I feel like we're missing Michael Hade, but obviously, it's not the end of the world. I feel like if we still have Justin Jake and fill up that spot. Midfielders, obviously, you have a pretty good choices over here. Jack McGlynn, Owen Wolf, Daniel Edelman, Lucas Puxas, Nikos Akidis, Obert Vargas, and Diego Luna. We have a lot of interesting prospects over here. Jack McGlynn and Owen Wolf looked pretty good in CCL this year, and in MLS as well. Jack McGlynn has become a starter for Philadelphia Union, and Owen Wolf as well has become a starter for Austin FC. Daniel Edelman has been in and out of New York Red Bulls, but still he looks like a pretty interesting prospect. Rokas Puksas has been scoring goals and providing assists in the Croatian league, which I feel like he'll be a really interesting choice. Obert Vargas has been part of the rotation for Seattle, and I feel like if he can bring that form from last year, I feel like he can be a key rotation piece for this group. And Diego Luna as well, pretty versatile, and obviously he's going to be a wild card for our team, which I feel like we have a pretty interesting choice of midfielders. So obviously we have a lot of good players that with high ceilings like Jack McGlynn and Owen Wolf. Obviously, Daniel Edelman is another player with a high ceiling. Rokas Pukstas as well, another player with a high ceiling. Nikos Akidis as well. Over Vargas as well. In my opinion, he does have a high ceiling as well if he can stay healthy. And Diego Luna, obviously, if I feel he can be a really good MLS player, he might go to. I think he has the talent to go to Europe, but I think he does need to find his minutes first. So obviously we have a plenty of good players over here in this midfield group. Now for forwards, obviously it's going to be Cade Cowell, Darren Yapi, Quinn Sullivan, and Graham Paredes. I feel like center forward is going to be our biggest weakness. Obviously, Ricardo Pepi did not go to this U20 World Cup since obviously he already graduated to the senior team. Obviously, he's not going to waste his time playing in the U20s. That was a pretty optimistic choice. That was a pretty optimistic route to go for the number 9. Obviously, Rodrigo Neri is not going. I don't know. Obviously, I feel like he can become part of our youth program in the future, but maybe now it's not the day. Cade Cowell obviously can be a good wide forward. Quinn Sullivan obviously good number 9. He can be a good number 9 or a wide forward. Darren Yapi obviously is a pretty decent choice for a striker. He's been getting minutes in MLS, but obviously he has not looked good in MLS. So I do not know how good he will look against the U20 players. I feel he should look good. I feel that's in my opinion. I think he can look good. Cam Paredes, obviously, he has been scoring goals for Wolfsburg and obviously providing assists off the bench, and obviously has been having some good moments here and there for Wolfsburg. So I feel like he'll be having a good U20 World Cup as well. So obviously, this is a pretty group. Key players to watch for me are going to be Gago Slonina, Justin Che, Caleb Wiley, Jack McGlynn, Owen Wolf, Cam Paredes, Rokas Puksas, and Cade Cowell. For me, these guys are the guys that are going to be high ceiling players, and I feel like they can even have the potential to be part of our of our 2026 group in 4 years' time, especially players Cam Paredes, Caleb Wiley, obviously, um, Slonina, Owen Wolf, especially those type of guys. I feel like they are good players. They are really great players, and I feel like this team has a lot more high ceiling players than the other group. And I feel like we can do a whole lot of good things with this group. And obviously, I feel like we can definitely get to the quarterfinals, maybe even get to the semifinals, hopefully. So obviously, this is a pretty exciting group. So yeah, possible formations over here. Obviously, you can go for 4-3-3. Wiley, Weiner, Justin Che, and Martu Cuevas as the back four. Midfield three of Jack McGlenn, Owen Wolf, and Lucas Puxas. Front three of Cade Cowell, Darren Yappi, and Cam Paredes will be a pretty good front three. And obviously for me, if I were the coach, that would be my main formation. With alternatives, you can probably put in guys like Brandon Craig, obviously put in guys like Jonathan Gomez as well, Daniel Edelman, Nikos Akides, Diego Luna, and obviously have other guys like Kun Sullivan as well. And obviously there's going to be plenty of other rotation players as well. Obviously there's going to be a whole lot of rotation over Vargas. Obviously there's going to be your Marcus Buchanan, obviously. Um, so obviously this is a pretty good group. I feel like this group over here has a lot of high ceiling players, and I feel like we can go to the semifinals over here. We could probably go one step up, and hopefully we can get a lot of players from this group. So obviously that's all I'm hoping for. So yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.